Hey everyone, I'm going to take a moment and explain the fasting exercise we just added. So we're going to be sending a special alms gift to East Tennessee through an agency likely through the SBC disaster response. So what is an alm is a question. An alm is a form of free will offering, which is an extra offering one gives to God that's not commanded to be given, but that is given freely. Often the church paired this practice with fasting. So the challenge is to sacrifice something you need, food, or in some cases, a luxury, something you enjoy, to God and give its value sacrificially to aid others. The alm is almost always associated with gifts for the biblical poor, which are those recovering from war, famine, disaster, plague, pestilence, or permanent states of disability, too. On our day of rest, the Lord's Day, we plan to practice the faith by determining how, when, and where, and to what ends we will serve the Lord in the coming week through various application of the means of grace. So those are the discipleship exercises that we do. Remember that the alms basket is for free will offerings to support the local church's ministry to the world, generally to the poor, widows, orphans, or strangers. While the tithe basket is for the obligatory offering, meant to support the local church's ministry to the saints. So the first week of November, we will send our gift to those in need in East Tennessee, likely through the SBC's ministry enterprises. All right, so this week coming up in our discipleship groups, before we take the Lord's table this week, we'll have a 2-minute drill to update on your Virtue First exercise, your communion exercise, and also your new fasting exercise. What are you going to do? You're going to fast from necessity or from a luxury? Then we'll have a couple of application questions from the sermon on Acts 20, verses 1 through 6 this week. And then we'll spend some time in intercessory prayer together and then close with a time of private preparation, a time of private prayer before we come to the Lord's table. Hey, I'm also attaching a newsletter. I think that I already said this in the previous letter. I'm going to be attaching an e-newsletter from a man named Aaron Wren. He's a city planner, a public intellectual, and a Christian living in Indianapolis, worshiping in the PCA. His latest newsletter and podcast are entitled, Is Evangelicalism Really Protestant? I know sometimes when I ask this question, it can sound really far out, and perhaps you might think that I'm a voice in the wilderness or just plain mistaken. Well, Aaron is much more middle of the road than me, and if he's asking the question and saying such things, it goes to show just how acceptable the question has become to ask. There's a famous book by J. Gresham Machen called Christianity versus Liberalism, where he demonstrates that the mainline Protestant denominations of his day, the 1920s, had slipped into being a completely different religion. That book was the impetus, you may not know this, it's the impetus, the forming of what we now call evangelicalism, which was originally known by the name of fundamentalism, because it was the fundamentals of the faith. In the coming year, I plan on reperusing Machen's book again so I can better explain what I see, which others also clearly see, that appears to be coming around again, which is a major break in the Protestant world that is already present but not yet clearly named. There is some very good material in Wren's newsletter this week. If you're interested in that cultural commentary, I am. So enjoy that. And again, just to consider, if you don't own J. Gresham Machen, Christianity and Liberalism, great book to add to your library. Get it in an audio book form and start listening to it. If you can't read, listen to it 2 or 3 times. It is a profound book, very profound. And I can hardly think of a few books today with more impact between, Christianity versus Liberalism and The Abolition of Man, for instance, would be another one of those books top on the list of people to read, of Christians today, because they go so far to explain really C.S. Lewis has given what Machen saw a real name and description as he writes just after Machen from the European perspective. So anyway, if you don't have any of those books, Christianity and Liberalism by J. Gresham Machen, and then C.S. Lewis, The Abolition of Man. So if you're interested in a fiction book that goes along with the abolition, I would tell you to read Till We Have Faces. That is another good Lewis fiction book, and it might help you get a little bit more grasp on Lewis's concept in The Abolition, because if you pay very close attention, the lead character in Till We Have Faces is attempted to be abolished several times. So, great book. even if you don't come away with a philosophical view that I just laid forth, Till We Have Faces is still always worth the read. One of the best books I've ever read. So may the Lord richly bless you. Go in peace to love and serve Him. And remember to set aside a luxury or to set a day for fasting. So, and then pray for the people in East Tennessee during that time period, that day, for those who are laboring there, those who have suffered losses there. Pray the gospel will go forth there during that time period. So we're going to join giving, prayer, and fasting together to form the ability for others to serve the poor, right? And then we're going to come on the Lord's Day and give it as an act of worship. So that fasting often is sort of a gift that brings all of the practices together. Have a great day. We'll see you on the Lord's Day. Blessings all. Bye-bye.